Denny Hamlin and Alex Bowman, two top drivers on expiring contracts, discuss their racing futures, and sponsor Turmoil plagues a fan-favorite driver in the Xfinity Series. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Jam-packed news week. If you're subscribed to the channel, you'll know I already posted a video this morning. The SRX was able to nab a couple of top current NASCAR stars, and the Daytona 500 entry list is getting fuller and fuller by the day. I did make a small mistake in that video, though. I suggested that the only way for someone like Jimmy Johnson to qualify for the Daytona 500 was to qualify on the front row, have one of the two fastest single-car speeds. That is one way to qualify in, but also, if you're an open car, you can lock into the Daytona 500 by being one of the two fastest of the open cars. So right now there are 5 open cars expected to enter the Daytona 500 at least. As long as you're first or second among those 5, you'll also lock into the Daytona 500. So I forgot to mention that little detail. So it's a little easier if you're an open car. There are a couple different ways to make it into the show. Of course, if you don't qualify in on speed, you can still race your way in through the dual races. It's all very complicated, but the point is there are plenty of opportunities for good drivers and fast cars to make the show. So just a small correction or an addendum I wanted to throw in here in this episode. Anyway, we're not talking about the Daytona 500 in this video, no. First, actually, let's talk about the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. Because yesterday, NASCAR announced that they will be giving out gold, silver, and bronze medals to the top 3 finishers in this year's event. Something, just like in Formula One, NASCAR is actually citing the LA Memorial Coliseum's history. It's hosted the Olympic Games before. That's where the gold, silver, and bronze medals idea is coming from, but here's a photo again of what the medals are gonna look like. Pretty cool. This isn't gonna happen for every NASCAR race, just for this special exhibition race at a very special venue. I like it, why not? NASCAR is usually pretty good about acknowledging their own history. It's kind of cool of them to acknowledge the venue's history in this case. They're just guests in a historic Coliseum. More news coming out of NASCAR corporate this week. Today, NASCAR announced they'd be reshuffling some of their leadership. Most notably, Elton Sawyer has been promoted to the role of Senior VP of Competition. He replaces Scott Miller, who will now move into more of an advisory role. So this year, whenever there's a terrible or questionable officiating decision, if there's a glaring issue with the next gen car or a massive penalty of some sort, it'll be Elton Sawyer answering tough questions from outside the NASCAR hauler post-race as opposed to Scott Miller. I don't blame Scott Miller for wanting to step down a little bit. Poor guy had to go out there and answer a lot of difficult questions last year, some of which, sure, maybe he shared some blame in. Others, I think he was just paid to be the fall guy more than anything. So I don't blame him for wanting to step aside and do something a little different. But Elton Sawyer will now be the head honcho. He is the new VP of Competition. Next up, and this was disappointing news to wake up to, but Landon Cassill will not return to Kaulig Racing this season. I'll just read you his 2 tweets. Unfortunately, I won't be driving the 10 car full-time this year. However, my quest to win in NASCAR continues. Sponsorships drive my business, and my sponsors over the last 2 years have been through a lot. Rebuilding will be my top priority. During this period, I'll be training and preparing for the opportunity to win. Thanks to Chris Rice and Matt Kaulig for the shot in 2022 and for being a great team. Hate to see that. Landon Cassill is a great guy. He mentions that his sponsors have been through a lot recently. He's referring to Voyager, who in 2022 actually filed for bankruptcy. Now, I'm no business insider. I'm not sure exactly what Voyager's status is. I read things about potential lawsuits, restructuring, buyouts, mergers, all sorts of stuff. Point is, things at Voyager, Landon Cassill's primary sponsor the last 2 years, are not great. Very unstable, to say the least. And as a result, what was supposed to be a 2-year deal for Cassill to drive the 10 car has turned into a 1-year deal. Now, he doesn't say he won't drive the 10, he just won't drive it full time. Perhaps he'll still make some part-time starts for Kaulig this coming season. Maybe not, I don't know, that's just speculation on my part. It's a bummer. Of course, when the Voyager news came out last year, everyone was wondering how that would affect Landon Cassill's current deal, but they ran out the entirety of last year with those bluish purple Voyager colors on the car, so many believed that perhaps the deal was prepaid. Maybe they paid up front. I was going back and reading, and I forgot that part of this whole Landon Cassill Voyager deal was that Cassill would be paid entirely in crypto by Voyager. Well, things in that space have changed dramatically in the past year, and perhaps Voyager was not able to honor the second year of their agreement, weren't able to pay Landon Cassill, wasn't able to pay the team as a result. Whatever the case may be, it sucks because back in October, Kaulig actually announced that Cassill would be returning full-time. I was a little surprised by that news at the time, but they announced it. So to hear this less than a month really before the season starts is very disappointing and is a little surprising. I like Landon Cassill a lot. He has been scratching and clawing for every opportunity the past 10, 15 years. He didn't quite live up to my expectations in 2022. I'll just be honest. Didn't win any races. Didn't even make the playoffs in a Kaulig car. But I'll give him this excuse. Kaulig did not seem to have the speed last year that they'd shown in previous years. I know AJ Allmendinger led the regular season points pretty much all year long, but none of their cars made the championship four. Daniel Hendrick, the defending series champion, didn't make the championship four, and I think he'd been to the championship four every other full-time Xfinity season he'd run. So clearly the Kaulig cars did not quite have the speed we're used to seeing, so I'm not going to put all the blame on Landon Cassill, but from a results standpoint, a little underwhelming last season for sure. But I was excited to see what they could do this year in year two. Now that's not happening. So I wish Landon Cassill the very best. I hope he's able to at least make some part-time starts with Kaulig or for another competitive team in Xfinity or maybe even trucks. I don't know what Kaulig does now. Again, will they run the 10 car but with part-time drivers? Will they find another full-time driver to take over that seat? It's got to be someone who brings some sponsorship, right? I don't know how many of those guys are still on the market at this point, to be quite honest. Maybe it'll serve as kind of a spot for Cup drivers, especially Chevy Cup drivers, to come down and race some one-offs. That could be the case. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely surprising and disappointing information to read this morning. Lastly, I want to discuss a couple of quotes that Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports reported this past week. As we begin the 2023 season, there are only 3, 4, maybe 5 drivers who I consider to be stars that are on expiring contracts. Do not have deals done beyond this season. We've talked about many of them. Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman over at Hendrick, and then the Trackhouse guys, Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez. I'd be shocked if Trackhouse let either of those drivers walk away, but as of now, they do not have contracts beyond 2023. There are a bunch of others. I think both front row guys, McDowell, Todd Gilliland, don't have deals beyond this year. They're usually on one-year contracts. Corey LaJoie's on an expiring contract. I think Almirola's on a one-year deal. I think actually all of SHR is on expiring contracts. But I imagine they'll at least try to keep Briscoe. So when it comes to stars, and I'm not counting Harvick because he's already announced his retirement, there's Truex, who I think either retires or stays at Gibbs. There's Chastain and Suarez, who, like I said, I'd be shocked if they get away from Trackhouse. And then there's Denny Hamlin and Alex Bowman. Now, Bob Pockrass asked both Hamlin and Bowman about their current contract status. Let's start with Denny Hamlin. From reporter Bob Pockrass, Denny Hamlin said he's confident he extends with Joe Gibbs Racing. He says so many aspects for his deal as a Toyota team owner with JGR Alliance that it could take a few months to get done. From Hamlin, quote, "I don't think myself and Joe Gibbs Racing will have any problems getting a deal done by any means." No mention in that tweet about FedEx, who is also believed to be on an expiring contract. Will they re-up with Hamlin? Will they continue to sponsor 25, 30, 35 races as they've done for many, many years in the past? Not a lot of specifics in that initial tweet, in that report, but you hear it right there from Denny Hamlin. He's confident that he and Joe Gibbs Racing will get a deal done to continue racing together beyond 2023. I don't imagine 2311 leaving Toyota, and at this point, I don't see any way Denny Hamlin leaves Joe Gibbs Racing. The question is with FedEx. If FedEx signs on, but maybe as a much smaller deal, maybe they don't even sponsor the majority of races, maybe they're just an associate and they have a few primaries. If FedEx were, and I'm not saying they're going to, I doubt it, but if FedEx were to significantly downsize their support, how would that affect Hamlin's contract? Would we be looking at another Kyle Busch situation? I don't think so, because Hamlin owns a Toyota Cup Series team. I'm sure Gibbs would do everything they could to piece together enough funding. Perhaps Toyota would even see it worthwhile to foot the bill to keep Hamlin in-house, keep 2311 in-house. I don't know. Based on those comments and based on just the reality of 2311, of Hamlin, of their history, I don't see any way Denny Hamlin leaves Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing after this season. But if FedEx doesn't continue their support the way they always have, that could complicate things. I do think it's interesting in that quote that Hamlin suggests it may take months to finalize a deal. That is surprising. I do wonder if Hamlin would be willing to sign a longer term, like 3-year extension, or if he'd look more at a 1 to 2 year. He's 42 years old. Once Harvick retires, he'll be the second oldest full-time driver in the Cup Series. I think he and Truex are just a few months apart. Hamlin's got 48 career wins. That ties him for 16th on the all-time wins list. If he wants to crack that top 10, though, he's going to need to win at least probably 12 or 15 more. He's still a great driver, still elite, still seeking that first Cup Series championship. I'll be curious. Does he look to sign a 1 or 2 year deal, or is he comfortable with a 3 to 4 year? Is a 3 to 4 year deal even on the table considering sponsorship? We'll have to wait and see. Those are the questions I have. Now, I want to spend a little more time discussing Alex Bowman's future. Here's what Bob Pockrass tweeted yesterday. I caught up with Alex Bowman and he said talks have started with Hendrick Motorsports about a contract extension. From Bowman, quote, I'm encouraged on where things are. Both sides are working on it. Hopefully, we can put something together. I don't want to go anywhere else. Of course, Alex Bowman wants to stay at Hendrick Motorsports. It's the best team in NASCAR. Especially if Ally continues their support. Man, there are few sponsors still in NASCAR that support their driver, support their team the way Ally has the past few seasons. So of course, Alex Bowman wants to stay at Hendrick Motorsports. The question is, does he have enough leverage to get a deal done? Does Ally really love him the way they say they love him? Are they willing to continue sponsoring 30, 35 or more races a season? Is Bowman the guy Ally wants representing their brand for many years to come? From a statistical standpoint, Alex Bowman has done pretty well since joining Hendrick. If you look at the last 4 years, he's won a race every single season. He has 7 career wins. He went through a kind of a rough mid-season slump last year, but still won a race, still made the playoffs. And if he doesn't get injured in that fluky wreck at Texas, Alex Bowman had already made it to the second round of the playoffs, and he might have slipped through into the third round. Alex Bowman is good, but he's arguably the third or fourth best driver at Hendrick, and he's not the youngest either. So that combination makes it kind of hard to see how he fits into this team's long-term plans. He's young enough that he could race another 10, 15 years. No one would bat an eye, and he might be really great. He could contend for championships. But I guess I'm just not convinced that Hendrick and Ally really see him as that guy. Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott have won championships recently. They're here for the long haul. William Byron, he's younger than Alex Bowman. Brings a little bit of sponsor support, I guess, from Liberty. Feels like everyone in the garage is waiting for William Byron to just explode. Maybe this is finally the year. I feel like we've said that for a couple years now. Alex Bowman's future likely depends on what Ally thinks of him. If they re-sign, Bowman's probably their driver. If Ally balks, if they scale their support down significantly, Hendrick may look elsewhere. I don't know where they'd look. You look at like the Junior Motorsports Xfinity lineup this coming year. Brandon Jones, probably not a Cup guy. Justin Allgaier, I think he's an Xfinity lifer. Josh Berry, he's good, but again, sponsor concerns. Is he really ready for a Cup ride? Not sure. And then who's left? Sam Mayer? I really like Sam Mayer, but he has not impressed in Xfinity the last couple years. He's had moments where he shows great speed, great potential, but just too many mistakes. Mistakes we weren't seeing him make in ARCA or when he dominated that Bristol race as a teenager in trucks. So we've already talked about the other free agents on the market. Hamlin's not going to Hendrick. Truex isn't going to Hendrick. I don't think Chastain leaves Trackhouse, but maybe they could entice him. I don't know. So when you look around, I don't know that there are a whole lot of great options to replace Bowman. So that may work in his favor. Right now, I would guess Alex Bowman stays, but I'm way more confident in Denny Hamlin's ability to get a deal done with JGR than I am Bowman's ability to get a deal done with Hendrick and potentially Ally. So just a couple stories to keep track of. Alex Bowman's comments there, both sides are working to get a deal done. That's so open-ended. That could mean anything. I think Eric Jones was close to getting a deal done with Joe Gibbs Racing and said so publicly before Gibbs opted to choose Christopher Bell instead. Who knows at this point? I think it's too early to tell on the Bowman front. The Hamlin stuff, I think it's heading a clear direction. Hopefully things work out. The Bowman and Hendrick, I think that's still kind of ambiguous right now. But I want to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you're an Alex Bowman fan, do you feel confident that he will stay in the 48 beyond this year? If you're a Denny Hamlin fan, do you think he'll stay in the 11? Do you think FedEx continues their major support of Hamlin for another handful of seasons, let me know down in the comment section below. But thanks for watching, y'all. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like. It helps me out a ton. And if you're new and you love NASCAR, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any upcoming content. And of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support the show, continuing to help it grow. I truly appreciate y'all. I will see you all again very, very soon. Thank you so much for keeping up on a very, very busy Wednesday. Take it easy, y'all.